that's James's dinner for today, and mine's a little bit different. I'm having soup and apples and peanut butter. James is going to be reviewing this Moonage Daydream, and I'm going to review the rest of these movies. I guess I'll get started with that because James isn't out yet. So, and then I can get into my soup. Yum! And if you haven't tried apples with peanut butter, it's delicious. I wish I'd discovered it years ago, because you see, the thing is I had a craving for peanut butter, and I know it's not that healthy for me. It's really high in omega-6 and stuff like that, but James has been eating it lately too. So anyway, yesterday I was given some gluten-free bread, and I thought, okay, and then I read, oh, yeast, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to risk yeast. Like, I haven't even been eating miso soup because I'm thinking, oh, is it going to set off a headache? Because I don't want it, right? If I can eat something and then I lose 2 days. It's no good, no good. So, anyway, but I eat a ton of apples, and I thought, okay, rather than having peanut butter sandwich, I can have peanut butter apple, and it works so great. It's way better than peanut butter sandwich, so you should try it. It's really good. And what else was I going to talk about? Oh, and my soup, yeah, because I haven't been risking miso. I've been thinking about it. I go to the grocery store, I put it on the list, and I'm like, oh, I better not, you know. Anyway, so what I did is normally I juice the asparagus, the ends that you usually just break off and chuck in the compost. Well, usually I juice them, and then I make a soup out of that, out of the juice. But it ends up being a really thick, maybe a bit too flavorful of a soup. And so anyway, what I've been doing is I put the pot full of asparagus, the ends of the stems, and then with water and salt, and boil it for a couple hours or whatever on the stove, and it works out great, because then it's flavorful, but it's not really thick, and it's not too flavorful, and it's a pretty good substitute for miso. And then I take another little, so when I'm ready to eat the soup, like I'll store the broth or whatever, but because it's a whole big pot full, but that I've cooked down. Then when I'm ready to make the soup, I just saute a little bit of garlic, like maybe 3 cloves or something, for this much, and in a little pot with some sesame oil, and over a low heat with rice, and that's already cooked, just to reheat. And then I stick the rest of the pot full of fresh spinach leaves, and then they wilt down, and like I put the lid on and they wilt down, and it takes like, I don't know, 5 minutes. Like, it's like basically as instant as Ichiban. So it's working out really well. I like it a lot. So the Moonage Daydream, I put it on the top of the stack, but I didn't watch it, so I don't know for sure.
We'll talk about those ones.
So the next one I had on the stack was Last Night in Soho, and I thought it was a really artfully done movie. It was quite attractive to watch, but in spite of Matt, what's his name? I don't know what his name is. The guy from The Ugly Doctor Who.
Oh my God, yeah, he's looking especially ugly in this.
He's always ugly. But anyway, he did an alright job in this. Everyone did an alright job in it. And I think that the woman that they picked for the main character, she was picked well. She's from New Zealand, and so she has a kind of a country feel to her character. That's genuine. It seems very genuine. And
I haven't known too many people from New Zealand, but they've been generally down to earth, I've got to say.
Yeah, so she fits the part. It wanted a country girl, go to the city, and you see her transitioning through becoming more city girl throughout the story. And but it's not so. I don't want to give everything away about the story because you can see I put it near the top of the stack, and so it is worth watching. But you might want to, you know, come back to this later. Go watch it and come back to it, this review, because I might give away too much. So it's a kind of ghost story, and it's about a woman who goes to the big city and has this big dream of being a singer, being a superstar. She wants to be a big superstar, and it doesn't work out for her. She ends up being a prostitute, and then she becomes worse. So I don't want to give it away, but honestly, they were trying to make a murderer into a victim, trying to portray them as a victim when they're a murderer, and this is disturbing that way. Also, I mean, there have been people who have done serial killing, and they end up hiding bodies in their house with them and whatever, but the bodies would smell really bad. Like, even if you have like a tiny little pet die and you keep them around, they would stink. Like if you leave a mouse trap or something, you know.
That's in a matter of days.
Yeah. So honestly, if you're a prostitute and you're bringing guys home all the time, and I just totally gave away the story with that. So I'm very sorry about that, but now that I've given it away, I guess I may as well just continue on. But if you're a prostitute and you're bringing guys home day after day, you know, they might go, oh, it smells like rotting corpse in here, but yeah, I'm still turned on. No, it's not going to happen. So it's not believable that way, but it is an attractive movie to watch. So I watched the extras on this one, which I normally don't do, or special features, whatever. And the writer was going to make her character, the main actress is her character, and going to art school in the city, because he had went to art school in the city, and it wouldn't have worked. He made a very good decision turning her into a want-to-be fashion designer, since she already made her own clothes in the country. That worked way, way better. It wouldn't have worked the other way. So good call on that. But yeah, it's worth watching. Child's Play. I noticed that this was out a while ago, and I didn't really care to watch it because I was like, they're totally ripping off the Chucky thing. But they make a joke out of it, out of the fact that they're ripping off the whole Chucky idea. And honestly, they did a great job. As far as horror movies go with, scary dolls, great. This one worked out. And Memory with Liam Neeson, I love him, I have to say. So seeing him anytime is a good time. And this movie, the rest of these movies here, well, not really. These two that I'm going to show you. This one, I don't even know what it's called. It says Destroyer, Destruction, Destroy. I don't know. Is one of them the French title? I'm not sure. But anyway, Nicole Kidman did a great job in that. She's looking worn, and she's supposed to. Her character is. So good job on that. And so I would compare these two. They're both, you have great actors playing the leads, and they're both police drama where they're going after really bad guys. But honestly, the guys that he's going after in Memory, they're way worse. So he got put on top of this, just because of that, honestly. And anyway. If you like watching police drama sort of things, you'd like that. The Fog, bottom of the stack. And I don't know, Jamie Lee Curtis has come a long way since she used to do the horror stuff in the 70s. That's all I gotta say. Fog was stupid. So go ahead and talk about Bowie.
Do you mean to say she's gone a long way down?
No, she's come up.
Oh, she has.
She's done better as an actress. Like, she's now doing, like, for a while there, she did a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger back when I was a teenager, and she did an okay job with that.
Well, I'm sure
and
she did a
now
much
she's
better
doing
job
far
than that.
better stuff.
Yeah.
So her rise to becoming a real actress has taken some time, but she's made it.
Okay. Moonage Daydream. Astounding. Okay, this is a blurb. It's not me. Okay. Among the best films about any artist, that's artist, I've ever seen. I'll reveal later who is the source, or what is the source of that quote. So there's Bowie in one of his more striking looks. So Moonage Daydream illuminates the life and genius, the life, of David Bowie, one of the most influential artists of our time. Told through sublime, kaleidoscopic, never seen before footage and performances, this experiential cinematic odyssey explores Bowie's creative, musical, and spiritual journey. Well, not so much spiritual. The film was guided by the icon's
Did
own...
it really say spiritual?
It says that right.
Oh my God.
The film is guided by the icon's own, so he's an icon apparently,
Yeah, sure.
own narration, and is the first officially sanctioned film of the artist. An icon, strictly speaking, is a religious figure.
Well, maybe they're trying to make him out as one, talking with spiritual and everything.
A kaleidoscopic odyssey through David Bowie's brilliance. Okay. That's The Telegraph, a masterpiece. NME. What is that? New music, something or other, from England. So I don't have to tell you who it stars. It stars David Bowie, and Bowie again, and Bowie again, and Bowie again. So I enjoyed. Can I say I enjoyed the movie? I recommend the movie if you're interested in rock and roll or pop or, I guess, art in general. David Bowie was quite a talented person. He reminds me a little bit of a guy called Jim Morrison. Morrison didn't have all the looks that much, but Morrison, I suspect he was bipolar. He ended up committing suicide. That was covered up by his wife initially and has been covered up ever since. He committed suicide the same day that Brian Jones, just 2 years later, Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones died. Did that death mean anything to Jim Morrison? Yes, he actually wrote a poem of sorts about it. He was looking very depressed when he went to Paris. And he went to Paris, and he went to Paris to die. And he didn't let nature take its course. Just decent things. And what I realized about Bowie, several decades after he died, finally realized was, you see, he took a film at UCLA. He wasn't a Southern California boy originally. I think he was, someone once styled it, the son of a Navy. I think his dad was some sort of a naval officer or something like that. So he kind of traveled from place to place along with his dad. He was young, if I'm not mistaken. And he, what he would have got when he was getting in film training, I'm fairly sure, some sort of acting training. That's what he really was, an actor. And he was a pretty darn good actor. Why? Because he makes you believe he's
that he's a
an
musician.
okay singer.
Yeah.
And that he actually can compose music, even with his limited vocal pipes. And he makes you believe, like I was actually trained a little bit to write poetry. I won't say I'm a poet, and I don't like strutting around, parading around saying I'm a poet. I'm a lot of different things if you're going to start naming names or given titles or stuff like that, so I prefer not to. But you almost think he's a poet. And on and on it goes. And you almost think he's kind of like a dancer or something like that. Well, Bowie reminds me of that. You almost think that he's a singer. Huh? He's a limited vocalist. So one of the worst albums I've got, I'm afraid, by someone this major in terms of being received by various audiences and critics and stuff like that, is Pin-Ups, an early album with lots of cover versions, generally of stuff from, let's say, the mid-'60s and stuff like that. I think he even does a Who tune. And there's mod type of stuff, and it's awful. Like Leonard Cohen, you never wanted to hear him doing cover versions. Elvis Costello, never want to hear him do cover versions, even though he's doing country and western stuff, where there isn't much demand on the pipes. David Bowie, you don't want to hear. Cohen's worse than Bowie, or was worse than Bowie. They're both dead now. Elvis Costello is still alive, and very limited pipes for Bowie. Dancing, when he's doing the mime stuff, and I guess he was trained as a mime. I don't know how long he was trained. When he's doing that, it's pretty good, pretty effective. As I was saying to Pauline earlier this morning, he actually makes mime interesting. Mime without the music and stuff like that. You go, ho hum, wake me up when it's over. But Bowie is doing it in time to the music, and it's quite effective. Like I find it more effective than, let's say, Michael Jackson doing the moonwalk. I gather that's a mime move, right? I don't know if Michael Jackson had too many more moves. I mean, he's a better dancer than Bowie. One of the most embarrassing parts of this thing is when it shows Bowie. They didn't show much of it going through his soul phase. Now, his soul stuff would be one of his early influences, the soul thing, because the mods, he was a mod. He would have been a very young version of the mods. Eric Clapton, when he was pop, and that's why he's always still, or not always, he got into kind of like skateboarding stuff somewhere along the line, dressed more like me with shorts. Shorts, but runners and stuff like that. But for the longest while, he's always dressed to the nines, maybe the 99s, and 999. But he was a mod way back in the mid-'60s and stuff like that. Pete Townsend, another guy, always trying to dress up fancy. Not always, but they'll tend to go back to trying to be the height of fashion. Well, Bowie never really got out of that, right? So he was a mod. He was a little bit younger than these other guys that was mentioned. He was born in 1947, only 7 years before me. And but the mod, I think, referred to, there were the rockers that came before. This is in England. They liked the rock and roll, right? So they dressed like teddy boys. They were called teddy boys. I don't think they were called themselves that necessarily. And they'd wear, they were trying to style themselves on Marlon Brando and the Wild One or Elvis Presley or whatever. So they liked motorbikes and so on and so forth. The mods came along. They were kind of answer. So they had little scooters, go around in scooters. But they were tough punks, because they'd get into fights with teddy boys in England on beaches and other places and stuff like that. But unlike the teddy boys, the rockers, who were dressed in black leather and stuff like that, the mods liked dressing up. They were in raincoats and so on and so forth. But they'd wear lots of different things. I like really dressing up. And I think mod meant modern. But in the case of David Bowie, what it really stands for is model. So there's a lot of talk in here and there's a lot of David Bowie talking, maybe too much talking by comparison with actual performances. And he's talking about change. So he's got that one song, changes, and so on and so forth. Geez, I'm singing worse than he does on it. But he says, it seems as though I change every year. Yeah, so what? How often do fashions change? Oh, it's every year. When did they bring out their fashions? Is it the fall or something like that? And, well, maybe there's a seasonal thing there as well, but it tends to be every year. And that's the way Bowie was. How significant is that? See, the kind of change I believe in is, how was it styled by one professor I had? I don't know if he picked it up somewhere else. Protean change. Where you actually change. Let's look at a real artist doing real change. James Joyce. Starts off writing short stories. Then he works on up something that was originally supposed to be a collection or something in his collection of short stories, Dubliners, and he made it into a novel. And that novel is called Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. And then he went on to write. Now I'm leaving a few other things, like he wrote a play called Exiles. He wrote some poetry, not very good stuff. He called himself a guild poet. He was honest about it. There are so many people down to Margaret Atwood and stuff like that. Michael Ondaatje going around, strutting around. They don't write poetry, and they're strutting around calling themselves poets and stuff like that. Joyce was honest. Be honest, you guys. I think you're still alive. Atwood was on CBC this morning. I think she was going to get interviewed by someone. I don't know, was it Tom Power or who's that idiot? Matt Galloway. But and I suspect Ondaatje, the last time I heard about Ondaatje, he was blaming the victim and accusing Charlie Hebdo and the people who got killed and the people who were wounded and the people just involved with the Charlie Hebdo thing of bringing their misery on themselves. It's awful. Blaming is worse than blaming the victim. It's actually targeting those people for setting up targets for people for further Charlie Hebdo type of incident. Michael Ondaatje, Canadian. He came to Canada from Sri Lanka when he was a kid, 9 years old, and this is the way he serves democracy, which has served him so well. Made a huge success out of him. He wrote a thing that was a successful movie, The English Patient, and stuff like that. Shameful. Shame on you. At any rate, Bowie. Model. Changes. How much time? 5?
Yep.
There we go. So what he's doing is just working his way through changes. Yeah, we're talking about Joyce. So after Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, then he goes on and he writes Ulysses. And Ulysses is incredible. It might not have been worth writing. And then he went on to write something called Finnegan's Wake. But each step, it's more complicated, more difficult to write, and more difficult to apprehend. Whether that process, particularly going from Ulysses to Finnegan's Wake, was worth it is another matter. But it's a challenge. With Bowie, someone was talking about his mid-'80s albums. Someone was saying, this is a step sideways for Bowie. Every album of his after Ziggy Stardust was a step sideways and a slight step down. Pretty well. A slight step down, and I'd say definitely a step sideways. There's no development. There is no development in fashion. All it is what's the new look for this year. That's what it was for Bowie. He missed some years every so occasionally, maybe 3 years in the early 80s and stuff like that, between 1980 and 83. But every step was a step sideways. No, it's a fascinating movie to see all the different looks, and he was rocking or not rocking or whatever, Some of the styles weren't very rocky and stuff like that. lyrics not nearly as good as Bowie. So he's he did some artwork, and it's very latter day expressionism. So someone should have told him, dude, this was done so much better by Gauguin, Van Gogh, so much earlier. I wouldn't say necessarily better by Cézanne, but maybe. They're styling him as a visual artist. Okay, yeah, not very good. I could do better, and I haven't officially been treated. Because, of course, up until I hit university, I was the best artist in the school, whatever school I was in. Well, I was in A cross. For my grade, maybe I was the best. I was in grade 7. There were 8s and 9s who would have been better. But I could do better than Bowie. And that's not a boast. It's just a statement. It's a judgment on Bowie. And dancing. Oh yeah, I was talking about him soul dancing during his soul period. It's embarrassing. It looks as though he's a marionette, like going through the moves, but there's nothing behind them. When you're doing soul music, which is based on gospel music, give me some feeling. Like when you hear Mary Clayton singing on Gimme Shelter, she steals the show. And she only sings, if I'm not mistaken, 3 lines. I don't know how much she felt the thing, but you feel it. Aretha Franklin singing material that generally wasn't that good. You still feel it. But with Bowie doing the soul stuff, he's not feeling it. The vocal mannerisms are just mannerisms. It's kind of and generally when he's dancing, when he's doing the mime moves, it's pretty good. But when he's dancing, it's a little less embarrassing than Elvis Presley dancing, or who else is kind of an embarrassing? Well, Mick Jagger. Is it? Yeah, a little less embarrassing than Mick Jagger dancing. A whole lot less embarrassing. Jagger is an embarrassment. He used to be better when he was trying to channel James Brown. Back when Brown was alive, this would have been up until, I think it's when he hit Tina Turner or something like that. Anyway, he decided to do all the shaking and whatnot. Anyway, what Bowie is kind of like is he's a combination of, what was I thinking? A marionette and a mannequin. A marionette and a mannequin. Think about it. So a mannequin is, kind of like a model, and a marionette, it's a puppet when he's actually performing. Semi-interesting. The last thing you want to hear, I think they call him a thinker or something like that. Was it? Yeah. And he's talking about Nietzsche and a few other things. He's talking a lot about chaos. Not very profound about chaos. He's saying, in essence, I welcome chaos, or I'm looking forward to chaos. And I'm going, Jesus H. God, I don't know when the last time they have him talking about chaos. They don't have much after 2002. This movie was put out last year, 2022. Here's Bob Dylan. I think it's about 1965. Way more profound than Bowie. Here's Dylan. I accept chaos.